And Trump himself has been not downplaying this. I mean, he has certainly seen how he uses these exact moments to his political advantage, Sarah. I mean, you covered him when he was in the White House as well. And he was posting today, what time he expected to be here. 7:30 here. It is 7:34 as he is arriving here.
We love some timely guidance, I guess. Yeah, but he does use these. I mean, he uses these for fundraising. He uses these to rally his base. I mean, that's one of the questions about the sort of value of a mugshot in this case, right? It's treating Donald Trump, if he does get one, the same as any other defendant, but you're also giving him a photo that there's no doubt that he's going to use on promotional material, he's going to use on fundraising material. I believe he made a fake mugshot in the past that he used for fundraising purposes. And I think that, that's one of the things that's gone into consideration in his previous 3 arrests, where he has not had a mugshot, is do we really need to do this when we're talking about a former president of the United States? We know what he looks like.
Y'all see it, man. Which one are you in, though?
Look at that, gang. Look at it, man. He is loved by all. No one can even come close to beating the Don, and that is precisely why they're trying to destroy him. That's precisely why they're trying to take him out. Right there, what you just saw. But alas, to no avail. Even CNN is admitting it. Whining, wailing that all of these efforts to take Trump out are only making him all the more powerful and popular. As you can see with your own eyes, the more he's persecuted, the more people, especially people who have themselves felt wronged by the system, love him. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We are live on both YouTube and Rumble. Super chats and super stickers are up. So send me your questions. I will answer them in due course. Today, we got a barn burner, gang. This show is going to be fire. Absolute fire. You're going to want to share this video with friends and family because this is it. This day will be looked back on as the official beginning of the end of the establishment. This is the first official hammer chipping away, blowing away at our Berlin Wall. And make no mistake, that wall will fall. Our modern day Berlin Wall is destined to fall. And there is nothing our corrupt, decrepit, ruling elite can do to stop it. And I'm going to show you exactly why. All that and more on this very special Live Stream Friday. Super chats and super stickers are up. Send me your questions. And before we do anything else, cue it, Josh.
I'll be back.
That's right. He is back. And it is time to show our support and celebrate the great return by clicking on the link below and getting your very own Trumpinator 2024 bobblehead. I got mine, and it's in preparation for Donald Trump's glorious reascendance to the United States presidency. This collectible bobblehead from Proud Patriots is made with the highest quality material, and it really is a must-have for any Trump fan who wants to send some energy towards what's shaping up to be the most glorious political comeback in history. Now, don't wait. There's just a limited number of collectibles, and you don't want to be caught paying way more later on eBay from someone who bought one now. So whatever you do, don't wait. Click on that link below right now and show your support for Trump 2024 today. Maybe I should put mine right here. It's got a great little box. It's a cool box that it comes into. I'm going to put mine right here as we chat. All right, let's dive right in here, gang. Let's take a little stroll, shall we, through the halls of history, relatively recent history. Who knows who this is? Oh, you can't show it. You got his picture there. All right, I went picture with his name on there. I was going to say maybe it's too small for some of you to see it, but put it in the chat if you know who this is. This is one of my heroes, my all-time, an artistic hero, a moral hero, a political hero, a cultural hero, a civilizational hero. Yes, that feeble, almost scared-looking fellow is none other than one Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a man who changed the world like no one else. This is his Gulag mugshot when he was imprisoned by the Soviet secret police back in the 1950s. Solzhenitsyn, after years of imprisonment in what was practically a death camp, he actually got cancer while he was in that camp and survived it. But he eventually emerged from that darkness, literally born again. He gave his life to Christ and gave his life to the pursuit of freedom for all Soviet citizens. He ascended from the darkness of that gulag to become a Nobel laureate author who exposed the evils of totalitarian communism in his books like no one else had previously done, books that were read widely by Soviet citizens all throughout the evil empire, despite having been banned by the powers that be. And after having been exiled from the Soviet Union for decades, Solzhenitsyn returned to his beloved Russia a national hero, having done more to destroy, to crush, to decisively end the evil Soviet system than anyone else in all the world. Here's another mugshot of someone you may know. And of course, that would be one Mahatma Gandhi. Now, he was actually arrested several times. And of course, he emerged from prison to eventually lead his nation of India to freedom from British colonial rule in 1947. And then there was another young rabble-rouser who no one liked. The majority opinion, actually, all the country when he first appeared onto the public scene was that this guy was a troublemaker. He was upsetting the apple cart. He was causing social discord. His antics were counterproductive. And nobody really wanted to have anything to do with him. And then, this. He got arrested in Birmingham. And his mugshot was plastered across newspapers and magazines across the country, and something suddenly happened. More and more people started to sympathize with him. They began to see with their very own eyes in that mugshot the very decrepit, corrupt system that Martin Luther King was trying to expose and reform. And literally within just a few years after that photo, he ended up changing a nation like never before. This is what this mugshot is ultimately about. This mugshot, more than any news article, more than any issue, political, cultural, economic, more than any event, more than any campaign, more than any election, more than anything else, this mugshot captures palpably, tangibly, and explicitly for all to see the very systemic corruption, the very weaponized legalism, the very establishment fraud and deceit that Donald Trump has been trying to expose and rectify for the last 7 years. Even Ben Shapiro's admitting this. The former Never Trumper Ben Shapiro himself is admitting that this image is, in his words, quote, instantly iconic. This mugshot is the official rallying cry for 100 million patriots all across the nation. And that's exactly why this iconic mugshot, as of last night, became President Trump's first tweet back on X, the old Twitter. The great one is back, and he is back with what is turning out to be the single most iconic mug shot ever. Now, we need to be very, very, very clear here on who the real enemy is. What all of those past mugshots had in common is that these defenders of freedom all recognized who the real adversary was, and they were able to effectively mobilize mass millions to overcome precisely that enemy and overcome that enemy permanently, to tear down the wall once and for all. So hear me very, very clearly here. Trump's enemy, our enemy, the enemy of 100 million patriots across the nation, is not the Democrats. Yes, you heard me right. The enemy is not the Democrat Party. Oh, I know all of these all of these corrupt, deceitful, vile prosecutors are Democrats. I'm well aware of that. But they're just the surface. You know this. They're just the tip of the iceberg. They are not the ones who are ultimately pulling the strings here. They're not the ones calling the shots. They're stooges. They're useful idiots. They're being used. Willingly so. But you all know who the real enemy is. The real enemy, the enemy of 100 million patriots across the nation, is the establishment ruling class. The political elite made up of both Democrats and Republicans. Make absolutely no mistake, this witch hunt, this lawfare would not be happening if the Republican leadership wasn't going along with it. That mugshot is happening not because of what Democrats are doing. It's happening because of what Republicans are allowing. If the Republican leadership were truly this feckless and helpless and weak, if they were always this cowardly, always this pathetic, this ineffective, this feeble and defenseless, the Democrats would have taken over our nation through this kind of reckless lawfare years ago. They would have smacked around and kick-circled this cowering Republican leadership ages ago. The only reason the Democrats haven't done this before is because the soulless, pathetic, patriot-hating, donor-controlled Republican leadership would never have allowed them to do it. The moment Democrats began raiding the homes of any other former president, the moment they started indicting any other Republican administration or fellow members of Congress, they would have unleashed World War III, politically speaking. The Republicans would have unleashed mutually assured destruction.
Allegation now is.
But what is this feckless Republican leadership doing now? I've not seen a single Republican leader out there putting forward a single strategic plan of action to actually defeat and stop this insanity. Not one. Oh, they whine and complain in front of TV cameras about it. They send out panicked, pathetic little tweets. They'll impotently lament that this is the end of our republic, that this is a sad day for America. But when it comes to the fundamental question, so what the hell are you going to do to actually stop this? They cower and they retreat. They run away and hide. But of course, not before they fundraise off of it. This is an outrage. Send me money. Take, for example, this fellow. This is Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr, a Republican. Now, Robert Barnes, who's of course a lawyer and knows Georgia state law very, very well, he's arguing that according to Georgia state law, the Attorney General is legally mandated to be involved in any state criminal case involving removal to federal court. So as many of you know, a case can be what's called removed from state courts to federal courts on the grounds that the case targets a person's actions while they were a federal official. So this is intrinsic to the very structure of our federalist system, which of course the current Supreme Court, the conservative majority there, has been an avid defender. So the operative principle here is that federal officials can't be targeted under state laws for actions they took in their official federal capacity. This is part of the federalist system in which certain issues are reserved for states and others for the federal government to handle. And here's the key. In previous cases like this one, when federal courts intervened, when the removal was granted, when the case was taken away from local prosecutors, in every single previous incident of that, the case was dismissed. The federal courts weren't interested in it. So according to Georgia law, the Attorney General must be involved in all motions to remove a case from local court to federal court, which precedent suggests would effectively end this saga entirely. Now, Mark Meadows, President Trump's former chief of staff, has, on behalf of, I believe, all defendants, filed for precisely that, for removing this case from local court to federal court. But according to Barnes, this Republican Attorney General, Chris Carr, is AWOL. He's nowhere to be found. He's done absolutely nothing about it. A Republican Attorney General in Georgia could, in fact, shut this case down this very second. He could have shut it down yesterday before Trump was even arraigned. But this Republican has refused to do so. Why? You all know the answer to this. Because the Republican leadership is in on it. They want Trump taken out. The Republicans, for all of their weeping and gnashing of teeth in front of the cameras, the Republican leadership want Trump indicted. They want Trump gone. The only reason why Democrats are doing this is because they are being allowed to do it. They are being invited to do it. The real photographers of that mugshot, make no mistake, the cameramen are the Republican leadership. It's McConnell, it's McCarthy, and it's McDaniel, our RNC chairperson. If they didn't allow this, it would never, ever be happening because of the obvious political ramifications it would unleash. Remember, when all is said and done, back in 2016, Trump was a third-party candidate who got a major party nomination. You've got to get that. Trump was a third-party candidate. He was outside of the donor class-controlled party apparatus. He was a third-party candidate who invaded a major party. He got the major party nomination. He did what RFK is trying to do in the Democrat Party. He was the only candidate back on that debate stage back in 2016 during the Republican primaries that was not officially approved by the donor class that controls the Republican Party. Again, remember, we're living in a time known as refeudalization, where billionaires and bureaucrats are teaming up to amass more power and wealth in fewer hands than ever before. We'll develop that more as we go along. And so both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are totally and completely bought and paid for by the donor class. We've got the studies to prove this, which I'll show to you in a mere moment. Billionaires and bureaucrats today form a single class that govern according to their own values, interests, and concerns. Again, we've got the data on. I don't know how many of you are familiar with a study that was published by Princeton University. It's a few years back, but its conclusions were utterly chilling. The study concluded that the United States is indeed formally dominated by a rich and powerful elite that have amassed more money and power than ever before in the history of mankind. And the study found that this elite, made up of bureaucrats and billionaires, has demonstrably more influence over the direction of government policy than do average citizens. In fact, the study found that, get this, elections have virtually no impact whatsoever on public policy. Ukraine, for God's sake. Public policy is almost entirely shaped by the corporate interests of the wealthy few. It was very interesting. What these professors at Princeton did is they reviewed answers to surveyed questions over the course of 20 years. Sorry, Bobblehead. I better move him out so I don't knock him down. But they reviewed questions over the course of 20 years from 1981 to 2002. And these were survey questions on public policy issues. And they broke the answers down by income level and then determined how often these variant income levels saw their policy preferences enacted. And what they found was that when people with lower income who represented a larger group of respondents, so democratically, they were the larger percentage of the respondents, but when a majority of average citizens disagreed with economic elites, those with super high income on any political issue, they almost always lost. Again, it's not their numbers. The issue, whatever they believed, was in the majority, and the issue for the elite was in the minority, but the minority elite always won. This study confirms that the economic elites virtually always get their own way. And it goes the other way. If a large majority of Americans favor a policy change, but the elites oppose it, then generally speaking, it doesn't pass. The majority do not get their way. If the majority opposes it, but the elite want it, the small, tiny, fringe elite want it, they get it. Legislation like that tends to get passed. And they're doing it all for the middle class. And keep in mind, it doesn't matter whether it's Democrats in power or Republicans in power. Again, it's a 20-year study. The rich got the policies they wanted, even if the rest of us didn't want them. Again, exactly what we're seeing right now with the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars being funneled into Ukraine. Forget Ohio, East Palestine, losers. Forget Hawaii, Maui. No, Ukraine. And so this study concluded bluntly that we're not a democracy. We're an oligarchy. We're ruled, not represented, ruled by a bureaucratic and billionaire elite, both Republican and Democrat. But in 2016, Trump, the billionaire, betrayed that permanent political class. He embraced instead the values, interests, and concerns of the people. Securing the border, crushing illegal immigration, bringing back manufacturing and industry, establishing energy independence, and reawakening cultural conservatism. Everything the globalist political elite despise. He betrayed the permanent political class, which did everything they possibly could to stop him, to thwart him from getting the nomination, and then to thwart him from winning the presidency, and then to try to kick him out of the presidency. He did it. Against all odds, he did it. He won the nomination, and he became the first Republican to win over 300 electoral votes in 30 years, and he won more votes than any incumbent ever in the history of our nation. Which means that the permanent political class's power, the power of the billionaire and the bureaucrat, is being threatened like never before. And thus they, for these last 7 years, have been using their power and their influence that extends into the deepest recesses of the deep state to neutralize this threat. And what really is this threat? If we know who our enemy is, who do they believe their enemy really is? Is it Donald Trump? Or is it something even more? I think you know the answer. But first, gang, we are literally at the beginning of something utterly epic. This week, dozens of nations met in Johannesburg to discuss a new trade currency backed by gold. And you don't want to miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get in on the action. We've got amazing friends to this channel who can help you do just that. We have partnered with the top-rated precious metals company, Goldco, who have helped patriots across the nation move over $1 billion into gold and silver. They're absolutely amazing. Click on that link below. And for those with retirement accounts, the patriots over at Goldco are offering you up to $10,000 in free silver when opening a qualified IRA account with them. And for cash buyers, you're going to love this. You can get bonus silver for just making a purchase. If you buy $15,000 worth of precious metals, you get $750 in bonus silver. If you buy $25,000 worth of precious metals, you're going to get $1,200 worth of bonus silver, but that's only as long as supply lasts. So don't wait. Click on that link below. This is your opportunity to get in on the ground floor of the new international turn towards the timeless value of gold and silver. So click on that link below right now. The real threat, gang, to the political establishment is ultimately not President Trump. He's just a symbol. He's, of course, the major symbol without question. Make no mistake. But the real threat to the establishment is you. They see you as the real enemy. What they're doing to Trump, make no mistake, is vicariously what they are doing to you. By silencing Trump, they are silencing you. As we've talked about on a number of occasions here, what we have to understand is that this oligarchy that we're living under is being forged by a social process that scholars call refeudalization. I want you to write that down. It's also called neo-feudalization. It's a very important term. It's going to help you to understand what's going on, and it's going to show you the way forward. It's going to show you the hope, the light at the end of this horrific darkness. Refeudalization refers to the ways in which the structure of our society is increasingly reflecting the kind of social structure, the caste system that characterized the feudal Middle Ages. So, for example, today, like then, you've got an astonishing concentration of wealth and power, right? Where very few people control pretty much everything. 5 years ago, 400 billionaires own half the world's assets. Today, that number's dropped to 100, and it's dropping even further. So you've got this tremendous concentration of wealth and power, where bureaucrats and billionaires are teaming up to create a top-down governance structure. The donor class, in effect, are the mediators between bureaucrats and billionaires. So this is why it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. They're both part of the same power structure that has progressively over the last several decades just naturally and organically reconfigured around the donor class. But then you have to ask yourself something. How do they plan to stay in power? How do they plan on keeping this refeudalized power structure that's made them more wealthy than any human beings ever in the history of the human race? How do they plan on keeping this refeudalized structure in place in perpetuity? I mean, you can make lots of money, but you're going to have to at some point figure out how to protect it and keep it, right? You can accumulate all the power and wealth you want, but how are you going to protect it and maintain it? Just like in the original feudal period of the Middle Ages, what you need to maintain your power is the rise of a comparable kind of religious fundamentalism. And here's why. Because a hardcore religious fundamentalism refuses to allow for dissent. It creates an ethical code, a moral system whereby dissent is treated as heresy, and heretics are excommunicated by those in power. So that's how it works in tandem with each other. Those in power maintain their power through a moral system that points out the threats to that power, and the power comes in and cancels them, excommunicates them. And so this is exactly where wokeness comes in, and why wokeness is now so popular among our corporate elite. Wokeness is the new top-down fundamentalism today that refuses to allow any dissent, but instead of a clerical class of cardinals or bishops or whatever enforcing this dogma, it's now a clerisy class, a class of pseudo-intellectuals from the universities and professions, most especially the legacy media. The media mediates this new dogmatic radical fundamentalism, and in turn impose an ideological inquisition on the whole of the population, with the goal of making us scared to death to act in any way that can get us canceled. So what wokeness does, or better, what it seeks to do, is by canceling, by excommunicating anyone who doesn't comply with its twisted norms, it deliberately attempts to fabricate a society where people comply with the imposed power structures precisely because they've lost any sense of an alternative to that compliance. The purveyors of wokeness, in their twisted morality, demand a world where wokeness is the only alternative. And anyone who seeks to dissent is castigated as a heretic, and then the powers that be, the billionaires and bureaucrats, come in and cancel that heresy. That's how the power structure, the billionaires and bureaucrats, the permanent political class, coalesces with woke fundamentalism. The billionaires and bureaucrats provide the social structure, all the while the wokeness provides the forced compliance, the fabricated consensus from which there's no possibility of dissent, and hence the power structure remains unchallenged for the foreseeable future. But what happened with the last feudalized social order? What happened to it? This has all been done before, gang. We're not going through anything new. What happened? Well, it created a revolt. A massive, massive, continent-wide revolt known as the Protestant Reformation, which scholars recognize was, in fact, a massive populist revolt. It was originally led by Martin Luther, who, of course, had to stand trial before the powers that be, the feudalized power structure, and was subsequently declared a heretic, canceled, an outlaw for his populist views. But it was all too little too late. And it was too little too late because in the end, Luther was not the real enemy to the powers that be. The real enemy, the real threat, was the people. And Luther unleashed them. He unleashed a people that rose up against what they increasingly saw as an incurably corrupt political and clerical class, and Luther was but their symbol. And of course, that uprising ended up bringing down the entire feudalist system. The power structure collapsed under the weight of the massive populist backlash. And what are we seeing now? Trump today, after 4 indictments, 2 impeachments, and a 24/7 woke propaganda campaign by the legacy media, Trump today is in a better position to win 2024 than he ever was in 2016 or 2020. Even CNN is admitting that. Trump is polling across the board better than he has polled ever. Trump is surging in popularity with literally every single category of voter in a way he simply never has before. Men and women, evangelical and non-evangelical, white and non-white, college grad and non-college grad, urban and suburban. With every indictment, Trump is literally just getting stronger. And why? Because the people are rising up. The people are rising up against the neo-feudalized totalitarian system. They're rising up against the power of the billionaires and the bureaucrats and against the insanity of woke fundamentalists. The new Protestant Reformation is here. The ruling elite can do whatever they want to try to thwart it. But this Berlin Wall is coming down. It's not a matter of if. It's only a matter of when. Just ask the original feudalized system. Just ask the Soviet Politburo. It's not a matter of if. It's only a matter of when. And that when looks more and more like it's going to be 2024. Over to you, gang. Over to you. Let's hear what you got with me, for me, or with me. Take your shots, whatever you want. As Josh assembles your questions, how many UFC fans do we have out there? We know that the one and only Donald J. Trump is a huge UFC fan, as are the fighters of him. But have you ever wondered what they do to manage their pain? Well, you don't have to, because a fellow patron and very good friend to this channel is precisely the one who provides relief to that pain, and he's here to do the same for you. We all know that as we age, aches and pains are normal, but they don't have to be. And that's the groundbreaking medical scientist, Clint Winters' genius. You've seen Clint on Fox. You've seen him on this channel. He's a world-renowned health expert who's unveiled a natural pain reliever that's taking the world by storm. It's called CB2. It's the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous meds, and it is the official pain reliever for the fighters in the UFC. And the best news, CB2 has no documented side effects after years of private testing. It's absolutely the future of pain relief. So whatever you do, make sure to click on that link below. Check out Clint's amazingly informative report on how CB2 is changing lives by providing safe and powerful relief at a fraction of the cost of pain pills. Click on that link below right now. All right, Josh, what do we got? Bring in the questions. Let's see what you got, gang. Mitchell, good to see you, my friend. Do you think the RNC will support Trump if it seems like they will not allow him to even attend a Fox debate? Well, I don't think they wanted him to come. They want him for the ratings, to be quite honest with you. Fox was begging for him to come. But no, I think in the end, if the RNC wants to survive, they're going to have to support Trump, or the RNC will collapse and we'll have a third party. We're going to go full Europe at that point. We're going to bring in our own Lega. We're going to bring in our own, Brothers of Italy, whatever, our own national rally. We're going to have to start a new Patriot Party at that point. So I think the RNC in the end will support him. They don't want to. They're doing everything they can to get rid of him in the meantime, including the what's her name at McDaniel. Next. Catherine, thank you so much for your gift, Catherine. Very much appreciated. Brooks Kelly, who else could Georgia could silence with this novel RICO persecution in the future, perhaps an MLK or FKJ? Absolutely. It's legal experts are arguing this latest indictment is so insane. It is so utterly nuts. It could literally criminalize anyone. It could literally criminalize anyone. I mean, it's beyond nuts at that point. So that there's a wide consensus on that. Again, you're never going to hear that on the mainstream media because they're part of the refeudalized woke fundamentalism to protect and preserve the permanent political class. Thanks, Brooks. Very, very appreciated. Independent free thinker. Best thing we can give back to Trump is put his face on Mount Rushmore. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I would love to see that. I could just love to see the four and then Trump, maybe even just given his own little space, somewhat separated because of the significance of what he was able to do to literally bring about a rebirth of freedom. Again, I forget who it was who was saying it, but we go through one of these crises, like every 100 years or so. I mean, we've got the rebirth. We have the birth of our nation. Then we had the rebirth in the Civil War. We had the civil rights movement in the 60s, and we're not quite at the 100-year mark, but we're approaching it where and perhaps it's going to be faster than 100 years just because of the massive amount of the dynamics today in our modern society and just the way centralization and globalization standardizes and brings together so much power and wealth so quickly in a way that just we couldn't before. So maybe we didn't have to wait 100 years. We just had to wait 70 years or so, 40, 50 years. Very good independent free thinker. Lord Iblick. Dr. Steve, are we concerned that all BRICS members have religious beliefs and traditions that are historically hostile towards Christianity and Israel joining together with that as well? God bless. Well, it's good. So Lord Nimblick is bringing up an excellent point here. We're increasingly moving from geopolitics to theopolitics, and that's because the modern age, classical civilization society, the society upon which Europe is founded, the society upon which America was founded, and so forth, is like a triangle. I like to say it's like a Christmas tree. So it starts with the sacred, the absolute, the unquestionable on top. Nature's God, as it were. the virtue traditions that are necessary for the civic virtue, which is necessary for a free people, for a self-governing people. It starts with religious traditions on top, and then you have your political class of some kind, legal class, whatever. You have some kind of military class, and then you have your mercantile, your merchant class, I should say. Mercantilism is different, but your merchant class, your artisans, and so forth. That's just kind of the way it's structured. What the modern secular globalist age did is it turned that upside down. So now the technocrats are on top, right? The mercantilists, the technocrats, and the politicians, they're just bought and paid for by these guys. But they're on the top, and the sacred is completely thrown away. And so 19th century international relations, 20th century international relations was all about how secular states, how politics interrelates to one another. So the globalist idea was to make everybody's politics the same, liberal politics all across the board, corporate economy, corporate capitalism all across the board, woke liberal values all across the board. What the BRICS countries are basically doing is they're turning that world back upside down as we go from a modern age to a postmodern age. So the sacred is back now. Russian Orthodox, neo-Orthodox Russia, neo-Confucianist China, which that's what President Xi basically says. They're not communists. They're Confucian now, the mandate of heaven. Though it's a Tianjiang concept of the mandate of heaven. Neo-Hindu nationalist India, neo-Ottoman Turkey, theocratic Iran, monarchical Saudi Arabia and UAE. So BRICS represents a coalition made up of multiple different political systems, but they're all united by common economic concerns, but also common concerns for the centrality of culture at the heart of everything. And religion is the cult of culture. So that's, I'm just to give Lord Niblick his full paradigm there. So are we concerned? Well, we could be, but you do have Eastern Orthodox Christianity is very friendly to Islam, generally speaking, and geopolitically speaking. You're just seeing that with Russia today, neo-Orthodox Russia, getting along very well with Iran, very well with Saudi Arabia, very well with UAE. Ambiguous with Turkey, but that's just because Turkey and Erdogan's policy is, by its nature, plays the West and the East off of each other. So it'll be interesting to see how Israel fits into that, no question. Now, if you were able to bring some peace between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Shiite and Sunni, it's not as fundamental as the problems between the Middle East and Israel. Remember, they just see Israel as a Western shill. They just see Israel as a satellite for Washington, D.C. Okay, that's all they see. If Israel can piss off Washington, D.C. enough, as they've been doing with their theocratic moves of reforming their judiciary system in the Knesset, if they can do that, perhaps they can find some kind of middle ground with Hezbollah to their north, or with Saudi Arabia or UAE, or in the way that they've been able to with Egypt. So we're going to have to see. But theopolitics is going to have its own dynamics, no question, its own unique dynamics. Next, Yano, good to see you, my friend. Dr. Steve, you're getting thinner. Good job. Thank you, Yano. Thank you very much. Very appreciated. Why Dems focusing on a few countries to win, or few counties to win election. Example, Seattle, King County. If you win, you have won the whole state. Those counties are full of homeless. Yeah. So the way it's structured, when all is said and done, is red states are going to vote red, blue states are going to vote blue. And so in many ways, it comes down to these swing states like Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin. Those are the three states that, had Trump won, he would have in 2020, he would have won the presidency. Traditionally, there's states like Ohio, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, but a lot of, like, Florida is just solid red now. There's a million vote discrepancy between Republicans and Democrats. this year. That's stunning because in 2018, it was the opposite. It was a 1 million vote discrepancy in the Democrats' favor. So the swing to the Republicans has been astonishing in Florida. And unfortunately, Ron DeSantis hasn't been able to translate that into a national campaign. His campaign at this point is a admitted disaster. So that's why they focus on those individual states. And then within those states, it's going to be particular counties that are the they're the deal makers, as it were. So like Maricopa County in Arizona, he who wins Maricopa County wins the whole state, for example. So that's why they're going to kind of laser focus on things. Republicans have to do that as well, not just Democrats. Thank you, Yana, and thank you for the little compliment there. I appreciate that. Very kind of you. Red Lightning, love you, Dr. Steve, longtime member, and love your Trump. MAGA forever. Amen, Red Lightning. Thank you. I love you too, man. Thank you. Yippee shoot! I want the Obama Hope picture with Trump's mugshot and MAGA below. I love it. Absolutely. The Obama Hope picture with a Trump mugshot and MAGA below. Instead of Hope, put MAGA. I think you're on to that. UP, you may want to, I see you're over across the pond. You may want to trademark that as quick as you can. You're going to make some money across the pond on our politics. Good for you. Love you, man. Hi, Q. Good to see you. Thank you for the pound sterling. At the end of World War I, Germany and their economy were in ruins, and then the brown shirts appeared, and we all know what they turned into. When I look at Ukraine, I fear history will repeat itself. I think you have every right to. I think you have absolutely every right to. I think that's true. There's just no way around that. The social structure appears to be something comparable. They're being destroyed. And then they have a bona fide Nazi faction that may be in position to take over. And we've been doing everything we can to pump them up economically and militarily. Yeah. Azovs are, I think, a comparable modern parallel to the interwar period. And keep in mind, Azov, as I understand, had no problem taking out Europe as well. They have no love for Europe either. Thank you, HiQ. All right, we got lots of comments coming in. Aviator and NorCal in North California. I'm assuming super sticker. Thank you, sir. Thank you, or dear, or madam, or whatever. Thank you very much. Maximilian, thank you much. Monday Maximilian here. I love you. Oh, Maximilian. All right. So the joke is, we've got an Insiders Club, Courageous Patriots Insider Club. We meet every Monday night. If you want to join up, I don't know. Hopefully there's something to click down below. Or just go to our website, turleytalks.com, to join up. We have live meetings every Monday night and on Q&A. And Maximilian, one of my favorite names, by the way, always gives us very profound questions. And his question now, his very simple one, is what is the purpose of life? To glorify God and to enjoy him forever. That's the Westminster Shorter Catechism, a great Puritan classic. I think so. It's to love God and to love neighbor, and hence experience your ultimate flourishing. Gotcha, man. Didn't take that long, did it? His questions could be very detailed and we could require some time to unpack. But I think that's it. In the end, Paul summarized the whole purpose of the law as love, and it is ultimately the love of God. That is the purpose of life. There you go. Love you, Max. Garrett Claiborne, the mugshot is Big Brother indulging in the 2 minutes hate. Trump is their Goldstein. Love it. Well put. Well put, Garrett. Next. Stephen Connors, FJP, you got it, Stephen. Said succinctly as always. You're the best, Stephen. Steve's another Insider Club member. Great to I'll see you on Monday night, Stephen. Have a great weekend. Quantum Thug Life, 444. We need voting on DLT, Distributed Ledger Tech Blockchain KYC. Wow. Okay, lots of code there, but I'm seeing the blockchain language there, obviously. So, but you're probably right. It would be very interesting to see the extent to which blockchain is going to change even the way we vote and the way voting can be confirmed, since blockchain involves ownership by its very structure, by its very nature. So that'd be cool, Quantum. I'm gonna have to look into that a bit more. Well said. Analog IDC, thank you so much for the gift, and God bless Canada, our neighbors to the Great White North. Daryl Stubblefield, thank you, sir. Very, very appreciated, Daryl. Thank you so much. Yano, you're back. I heard yesterday in fake news and Newsmax, Secretary of State had the power to put Trump's name in ballots to not put Trump's name in ballots if he's convicted. Can they really do that? No. As I understand it, no. There is no way Trump can be taken off the ballot if he qualifies in the three manner, right? He has to be born a U.S. citizen. He has to be at least, is it 36 years old? I forget. Something, and then there's a third requirement. I mean, it's very broad. Anyone, you can run for president from prison. That's not a problem. They can't legally take his name off the ballot, and I don't think the Supreme Court will allow that. They're trying to push the sedition, the insurrection, the 14th Amendment, but it's absurd because he's never been actually charged, or even convicted for sedition or insurrection. So thanks, Yana. Paula Harris Music. All right, musician. We know Trump is going to win, just like in 2020. God bless you. You're absolutely right. How will we prevent Dems cheating again? Ballot harvesting is great, but what about the machine? I'm with you, Paula. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. Patriots have to take over the polls. So that's Steve Bannon's precinct strategy. So we have to be in every precinct the night of that election, especially, the ones that were compromised on in November. And we can, I just don't know what we do with the actual machines. I literally have no idea. Now, Paul, I may be wrong. So don't, for me, it's an open question. So I'm not dogmatic on it, but it does seem to me that where we really failed in 2022 was in the ballot harvesting. It wasn't in the machines. The machines weren't so much an issue. It was the ballot harvesting. And if we use the SoCal ballot harvesting strategy, I think we're gonna crush it. If we go to evangelical churches that vote 80% Republican, but they only have about 50% turnout. Well, if you go directly to those 80% Republican vote harvestings and you harvest their vote so that the turnout is double that, right? 100% or 90% or something like that. That's how Republicans are winning in Democrat +4 districts in Southern California, because they're going to evangelical churches and they're finding votes that Democrats just can't find or manufacture, for that matter. And we're going to have to win outside the margin of error. And again, keep in mind too, I know they got away with it in 2020, but generally speaking, fraud involves glaring voting discrepancies. So, for example, the person who wins both Florida and Ohio has won every single election since 1864, if I recall, for the exception of 1960, the last time it was stolen. And of course, Trump crushed it in Florida and Ohio. So you have some bellwethers that you can cross tab. But again, it didn't help in 2020, and it doesn't. All the election fortification on our integrity fortification means nothing if we don't have the people in place to enforce it, like what we're seeing right now in Georgia. The feckless, disgusting rhinos in charge of the Florida Republican Party. They are beyond disgusting. If you're in Georgia, get rid of every single one of them. They're horrific. So in the end, what we have to do is we have to do what they did behind the Berlin Wall. We have to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until it finally falls. That's what we have to do. AJ, do you think DeSantis ruined his hopes for the White House in the near future? Because whoever the VP, that's who Trump will support. Trump 2024. You mean the that scene was devastating, in my opinion. It was devastating. It'll be. I mean, Democrats will play that over and over and over again, just to show you this guy is not motivated by heart like Vivek was. He's motivated by the donor class. Well, what am I supposed to do? No, I think he's ruined his hopes for the White House. certainly for 2024. He's not going to be the VP. It's tragic. I think that deal was already brokered, as I understand it. Trump DeSantis ticket, and again, the Republican permanent class, the donor class, is trying to destroy Trump. In the end, Trump is being taken out by Republicans. That's what you got to get. Democrats are just a ruse. The Democrats are just being used. It's the Republican establishment that is allowing this. McCarthy, McConnell, McDaniel, who's of course the niece of Mitt Romney. They are actively attempting to take him out. So it's Republicans are doing it. So I think in the end, someone like an RFK would be astonishing. That would be the biggest middle finger imaginable to the Republican establishment right there. It would be a populist revolt in its ultimate form. We've never seen an election like that. That'd be stunning. So, Rock Dog, my friend, Dr. Steve, they stole the election in Arizona last year. Absolutely stole 2020 and almost stole the midterms. And we did nothing. What do you see happening if the Uniparty steals 2024? So yes, that's very much the case that can happen. We have to go into 2024 recognizing that all the odds are stacked against us, because just like in 2016, because the Uniparty is now, it's even worse than 2016, because the Uniparty is now absolutely united in trying to stop Trump in any way they can. That's why Tucker asked him, "Are you afraid for your life?" They've tried everything, and now what if they just try to, take you out the Prigozhin way, for heaven's sake? So absolutely. But I think if they steal 2024, I think it'll be but the latest, tank invasion of the Soviets in Hungary or Poland or Czechoslovakia that quelled the uprising for a time, but only provides the opportunity to reamass, reassemble, and come back stronger than ever. That's how the Berlin Wall fell. The Berlin Wall did not fall with one hit. It took, I love the imagery of the hammering and the chiseling away and of the Berlin Wall, because to me, that is symbolic of what Eastern Europeans did and for 50 years. And what Soviet citizens, to at least a lesser extent, they were a bit more, I think they had no choice of being a bit more compliant for 70 years. They chipped and chipped and chipped and punched and punched and pushed and pushed. And every time they got pushed back, but every time they came back stronger. And it happened with the Protestant Reformation. And that's, again, the Protestant Reformation took a couple of centuries to work out fully before the Holy Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church in its ruling structure finally fell. It took that time. And I'm not saying I'm necessarily against, Western civilization, Holy Roman Empire. It's just an analogous political dynamic where this refeudalized system that put very few in tremendous power are being revolted against by the masses. And eventually they just fell. And same with the Soviet Union. Eventually it just fell. And eventually this is going to crumble. So even if they steal it, we're going to come back stronger than ever in 2025, in 2026, in 2027, in 2028. And then if the demographics finally kick in 2030, Eric Kaufman of the University of London argues that by 2030, conservative Christians particularly, are going to be in the majority just because of the fertility advantage we have over and against secular liberals who aren't having kids anymore. We're having more kids than ever. They're not. They're dissipating now very quickly to no more than 10 to 14% of the national population in just a few decades. So we're going to get them. It's just a matter of time. It's just how much damage can they inflict in the meantime? Thanks, Rock Dog. Excellent question. Charles Turner, my friend. Thank you for that gift, Charles. Gee, thank you, sir. Thank you. No more compromising on our values of faith, family, and freedoms. Firearms. The establishment elites, permanent political class hate us. Amen. There are more of us than them, infinitely more. They never compromise. True. Screw them. Amen. Polls should also be taken with a grain of salt. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. What's so fascinating, and thank you, Charles, again for that gift. You're always so kind. Thank you, Charles. Yes, absolutely. So one of the things I do with polls is I try to corroborate. I'm going to multiple polling sources that are coming with different methodologies and the like. And if they're coming with overlapping results, then that's telling me something. Something is going on there. I think we've hit reality there. I also trust very much Rich Barris. His polling is brilliant. It's excellent. I mean, he does literally county by county polling, old school polling. That's absolutely excellent, and his weighting methodology is very, very good. So absolutely. But with that in mind, Trump is polling like never before. And again, the key is, Charles, what's so interesting, and all the polls are showing it. The key is he's polling better than ever with constituents he lost in 2016 and 2020. So he's been surging with, we're talking suburban women, non-white working class. He's been surging, those making over $100,000 a year, those with college degrees. He's been increasing his vote share with these sub-demographics. All the Democrats are losing them. So again, I think and they're seeing the very fact they're doing this to Trump tells me they're seeing these polls, and those polls are authentic. They trust them, and they're freaking out. And Trump always outperforms the polls. Trump always outperforms the polls. And whenever Trump's on the ticket, Republican base comes out in mass. Whenever Trump is not on the ticket, 2018, 2022, they do not come out. It's very interesting. So he is the galvanizer. That's why they're trying to take him out. Thank you, Charles, again. Very kind. Charles, you're back. Charles, you're too kind. We don't need to worry about namesake calls. Amen. Also, Dr. Steve, I disagree with you. No problem. When you give gifts like this, Charles, no problem. I disagree when you say we generally don't want to match tit for tat, but I say we have no choice. I refuse to live in their weirdo world. What I mean when I say we don't want to match tit for tat, I'm talking about the Republican leadership and just the wide, or Republican politicians in general are very hesitant to enact the same antics Democrats are willing to go to, simply because they recognize were they to do so, we would officially have lost our republic. That's so the Democrats are holding our Republicans politicians, they're holding them hostage to their fidelity to the Republican integrity of our nation. Not us. I'm all with you, man. I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, the Republic is dead right now. That mug shot is all you need to know that our Republic is dead. So now fight fire with fire. Enough. And then we'll have a grand old time rebuilding it. But with the woke left completely defeated. I'm with you 1,000% on that one. So I think you and I agree. You may know some Republican leaders who are ready to fight. I know Matt Gaetz has been doing, MTG has been doing it. But again, I have yet to see it. I have yet to actually see it enacted. And until I see it enacted, as far as I'm concerned, you've got some well-meaning Republicans that are nevertheless beholden to a totally corrupt and compromised leadership that's 100% in with the Democrats and the permanent political class trying to get rid of Trump. Thank you, Charles. Rock Dog again. Thank you, sir. Dr. Steve, how long of nationwide strike would it take to remove and punish these uniparty traitors, in your opinion? It's a good question. It's a good question. I did a video a little while back on that. On what we can do. I'm going to reserve comment on that because I need to go back and rethink that in light of just some more studies. But we have red count. When you forget red states, you think only red counties, because the majority of blue states are actually majority red counties, right? It's only their elite cosmopolitan urban centers that are hardcore blue. So just little splashes of blue there. Whenever you see any kind of election, and you look at the county map, county by county map, it's almost all red. It's a sea of red, as it were, with just little blue splashes. And strategists have pointed out that if ever you red counties wanted to enact something akin to the Greater Idaho movement, where they wanted to align their counties with each other, we would have a MAGA superstate. And that MAGA superstate could effectively starve, right? It could besiege and cut off virtually all of our blue cities. So we have political power, extraordinary political, economic power that we have yet to use. And if we can figure out how to mobilize that, we're a force again that promises to be a super majority like which we've never seen, especially in terms of land mass and in terms of commodity, right? In terms of the actual, farming and food and fuel and the like. Our political elite, our coastal elite, cosmopolitan elite, that's all finance. All they've got is finance. We've got food and fuel. And you can starve people by keeping them from food and fuel. Forget they can debank us. Okay, great. Well, we can debread you. Let's see who breaks first, right? So it would be very, very interesting to see what we could do in terms of mass protests. But there have been several historically that have been very, very successful. The trucker protests in throughout Europe, the farmer protests, particularly in the Netherlands. The farmer protests help to bring down the Netherlands government. They'll have special elections coming up in the next couple of months. The farmer protests help bring down the trucker protests help bring down the Italian liberal government. Now they have a nationalist populist government with Giorgia Meloni, the Brothers of Italy, the most popular government in the EU. So, there are protest strategies. Of course, you have the Freedom Convoy. We have our truckers ready to go. We have our farmers ready to go. If somebody can mobilize them in a way, this is what I mean. I mean, after 2024, if they steal it, I think we need to. Yeah, I think we need to mobilize in a way we've never mobilized before, and shut down the economy until at least the donor class in the Republican Party comes to heel, and then you're restoring some kind of counterbalance. It's not a uniparty rule anymore. Now you'll finally actually have an opposition party that can come back and say, "Whoa, we need to stop. This isn't going to happen anymore." Right now they're complying. There again, keep in mind McCarthy, Cruz, they're all just in front of the camera. Oh, this is the worst day for our Republican in history, and then they go back to scenes and say, "All right, go to it, Democrats, go to it. We got your back." So. Anyway, I don't have anything specific there, just more general. Yes, we can do it. The question is how and when. Kyle, good to see you, my friend. Watching blacks in Atlanta cheer free Trump had me tear jerking. Black Americans are waking up. We're winning in America. Blacks for Trump. God bless you, Kyle. Yeah, I'm with you. So Trump, I forget the stats here now. But I think Trump improved it's black men in particular. It's black men. So black women they're the heart of the Democratic Party. They've been for decades now. But black men have been moving. They've been going to Trump every election. I forget the exact stats. It's something like he's growing 20% with black men every election. So he got 20% more than, say, Romney got in 2016. He got 20% more in 2020 than he got in 2016. And it looks like in the latest polls, it looks like he's going to get black men by even more in 2024. And you have to understand too and you do. I don't need to tell you, Kyle. Obviously, but for our audience, just what's so fascinating here. And I said it at the beginning. I said it at the very, very beginning of this. Again, I think it was Rich Barris and Robert Barnes, very, very prescient fellows. I think they were talking about this. Yes, actually, I know they were talking about this. Is that mugshot, or just this legal persecution as a whole, is doing more to ingratiate Trump, particularly with young black men who feel they've been mistreated by this system over the last several decades, and so for the history. they see Trump as somebody who's being persecuted by the man, and that's creating tremendous sympathy for him among non-white, particularly male voters who tend to be overwhelmingly part of the prison population. So I'm with you, Kyle. I got emotional too when I saw that. I just, if we can see a full-blown populist patriot movement just burst into our to the low-income communities, non-white communities, in a manner that overwhelms them, I think we're going to see a birth of liberty and reform, and just a spiritual and economic reformation in those communities like we have never seen. It's going to be incredible. I mean, this is what Thomas Sowell was always arguing. Thomas Sowell always argued, that the Black ingenuity in particular is extraordinary. The Black entrepreneurial story is extraordinary. It's liberal policies that have ravaged the soul of the non-white underclass, that kept them imprisoned, as it were, in a permanent underclass state by keeping them. The Soviet scholars called it hypernormativity, by stripping away from them any possibility of seeing reality in any other way other than what Democrats are offering them. And they know, during the last years of the Soviet period in the 70s and 80s, scholars found that Soviet people knew, the citizens knew they were being lied to. They knew it. But they still supported the system because they had been so brainwashed so as to not recognize that there were alternatives. They could not conceive of any alternative to this communist system, so they went along with the lies. And I just hope to God, by God's grace, that Trump can, and just all of us can, help break through that hypernormativity, that those cognized scales, as it were, that hide that were purposely put there so as to prevent these wonderful people from being able to see the world in alternative ways than this despotic Democrat, basically prison. And I'm with you. I'm 1,000% with you. If we can do that, if we could break through that hypernormativity, we have the potential of seeing areas in our country that have been economically underprivileged for decades thrive in all kinds of ways, economically, spiritually, educationally, politically, because they can break through this Democrat prison. I'm with you, Kyle. God bless you, man. God bless you. Stephen, rise up. You have nothing to lose but your chain. Amen. That's it. We are the new Marxists, as it were. Marxists with a lowercase m or something. Marx was pushing a populist revolt when he was doing that, of course, in his own twisted view of history. But we want to go beyond the Marxists, and we want true history. We want our nation restored. We want the world restored back to faith, family, and freedom. Awesome, Stephen. Greg Smith, thank you, sir. Thank you from the Great White North. And China funding the Green parties in the West. Do people really think that the Great Wall of China will stop pollution from coming to their city? Goods from China should receive major carbon tariffs. Yeah, I mean, you could do that. Absolutely. China, yeah, I'm sure China is probably funding political, destabilization, instability in the United States. But again, to China, the more I study China and Sino studies, the more I'm seeing China in the end is just, they're literally just trying to help orchestrate a new multipolar world, relativize the West so as to be able to influence the East, particularly the South China Sea, without Western interference as much as possible. But they have no interest in taking over the world or anything like that. Not in a civilizationalist state world order, where India and Russia and Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia are very, very powerful counter interests, and Israel as well, not to mention Israel as well, very powerful counter interests. So it's more, we're going back to, a multipolar geopolitical balance of multiple powers. And I just don't think China's again, I'm not a Steve Bannon, China. I'm not that. I think that's old Cold War thinking, and it misses the real world that's rising right now. But anyway, but you could be in as far as a carbon tariff. Sure, you slap any tariff you want. Trump had no problem slapping tariffs on China. But again, for him, China was an economic issue. China was not so much a political issue. He wasn't trying to get regime change in China. Right. Excellent, Greg. Danny, so if they manage to imprison Trump, and thank you for the pound sterling. So if they manage to imprison Trump, can a revolution get him out? By the way, I praise Jesus so much for people like you. Thank you, Danny. God bless you. God bless you, my friend. And I miss my days in Durham University. I got my PhD at Durham University in the shadow of one of the most beautiful cathedrals on the planet. Well, can a revolution get about? Sure. I mean, a revolution could do anything in the end if they can take over the powers that be. So yeah, we'll say I doubt he'll go to prison. Most legal scholars don't believe that you could put a somebody under the care of the Secret Service in prison. I mean, you could put him in house prison, which for Trump wouldn't be that problem. I mean, hey, sign me up. I'll hang out in the mansion all day, right? So yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, again, if they send him to prison, or if they do that, I mean, all bets are off at that point. Thank you, Danny. Mitchell, how do you think we save the U.S. dollar? The U.S. dollar is going to have to pivot to an increasingly de-dollarized world, which means then that I think the U.S. dollar is going to have to be far less reliant on debt purchases, on buying up our bonds, and far more dependent on the traditional commodity-based conception of money of gold, silver, oil, and the like. Again, we're one of the most commodity-rich countries on the planet. And you don't have to do it, as I understand, you don't have to do it on a single commodity. It does not have to be linked to the current price of gold, for example. It can be linked to all kinds of commodities, and you can do an aggregate average of those commodities, as I understand. But I think we're going to eventually. I think the Austrian School of Economics is basically right. We're going to have to go back to good old and this is for everybody in a multipolar world. You're going to have to go back to a commodities-backed currency backed by real estate. You cannot depend on the world pumping up your currency by buying up your debt. It's just again, we could spend money we don't have because we know everybody's going to keep buying up our debt because of the petrodollar and the like. So I think we're going to have to go back to a commodities-based dollar, which is good news because we're one of the most commodities-rich base countries on the planet. But everyone's doing it. That's what BRICS was all about. BRICS is all about trading in their own currencies, where I think they would average it out more or less in relation to gold. Now, I know they were talking about gold, but I think it's going to be, when all is said and done, it's going to be an average of the commodities. But that's incredible news. That's great news for gold, silver, platinum, and the like. That's what I would do, Mitchell, from what I know. Kenneth, again, thank you for the pound sterling. A lot of you from across the pond. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for this. The West does not need the so-called left or right-wing populist politicians. The truth is it needs a Charles Martel, leaders like Charlemagne, Charles the Great, and Nicholas I, who will lead a reconquista for the West. Charles, you've got 2 minutes. Kenneth, I'm with you, my friend. I'm with you. And again, keep in mind those people, those men, those great men, had the hearts and minds of the people behind them. And so, yes, I have no problem with it. Again, a lot of people don't like this about my analysis and so forth. I tend to be politically agnostic, internationally speaking, because I see the new world that's rising as culturally specific So the old world was, as we talked about, the old modernist world, not the old world, not yours. For us Americans, the old world, because we're so young. But the waning 20th century experiment of modern globalism arranged the world in accordance with politics. So your political order determined whether you're a good country or a bad country, right? So if you're a liberal democracy, you're good. And if you're, a monarchy or theocracy or communism or whatever, you're bad and evil. And we're moving to an age now where a postmodern age where culture is now the primary architecture for the new age, civilization, culture, and politics is downstream for culture. So BRICS is showing that. Again, we've got a neo-Orthodox czar. Basically, you've got a neo-Confucian, political class in Beijing. You've got the Islamic theocracy. You've got an Islamic monarchy. They're all coming to, and then you've got Hindu democracy, and you've got your just basic democracy, and they're all coming together into this single, unified, very, very unified block. And so I'm, in a sense, I'm with you. I mean, I don't care how we restore this. We need to restore it. And a reconquista sounds great to me. I am perfectly fine with that. We need to restore it. And what do we need to restore? We need to restore the centrality of our customs and our traditions that maintain our civilization for 1,000 years so that we can see another 1,000-year flourishing. Gotcha, Kenneth. Awesome. Thank you for that. Why? Latest Zimbabwe elections just as corrupt as 2020 USA elections. I'm from South Africa and I'm disgusted. Yeah, I'm sure. I have done, and to my fault, I have not. I've been more looking at what's going on in the Sahel region, but to my shame, I've not been keeping up with Zimbabwe. But I'm sure. I mean, the elites are in control in the end, and we have to make sure we have to just take them out peacefully, of course, peacefully. All right, Fraser, is it time to consider forming a union of the Anglosphere with the BRIC nation forming a new currency and a new trading bloc? Well, it's being talked about, Fraser. I see. Pound sterling. I'm not pounds. Sorry, Canadian. Churchill actually wrote a whole book on it, right? The history of the English-speaking people, and it was very popular, as I understand, in Britain in the 40s and 50s, the idea of forming sort of a formal Anglosphere. At the time, Americans were just totally uninterested. This is when we were beginning to be just kind of in our own little world. Well, we just thought we were the world at that point, which in many ways we were post World War II. With China completely poor, Japan decimated, Europe decimated, Russia decimated. I mean, we were it. And so that's how we brought in the unipolar world. Well, it was bipolar with the Cold War up to 1991, and then the unipolar world, which is now waning. It's BRICS. I think this week was, in many respects, we'll look back as sort of the official end of the unipolar world and beginning of multipolar world. So yes, no, I'm with you. I mean, with the rise of civilization states, again, as economic powers become very, very strong and very, very big, size matters. And it's hard to fight back when you're just kind of a tiny little nation, a sort of a tribalized nation, or just even a small civic nationalist nation. So the organic dynamics are moving in the direction of some kind of Anglo-civilizational configuration. Now, what it looks like, we'll have to see. But definitely something akin to like a BRICS for the Anglosphere, something like that. Definitely, I could see that. I mean, we already have it as a default, but not formal. And then we'll have to overcome some real differences too. I mean, having studied in Britain, I mean, my family is British. My father's side of the family is from Oxford. So my grandfather was the first full-time R&D chemist for Roman Haas in Philadelphia. So he came over from London by boat, landed in Philadelphia, and raised his family and was buried there. But as a kid, I always had a very, very strong sense that my homeland was England. And my maternal grandparents would get very upset at me because they came from Ireland, the Cronins. but they came in the late 19th century during the gold rush. So the disconnect from Ireland, it wasn't as immediate as it was with my grandparents being from Oxford. So, but so when I went to England, it felt like being home. It really did. My first time I went to England was in 2009. And it really felt like I was home. But I also had the sense of, wow, things are really different here. The Brits do things differently than the Americans. Or even when I spent time in Canada and just even on the border in Niagara on the Lake, there's a sense, it's different. It's got its own thing. Or Aussies are definitely, and vice versa. People come to the States and they're like, you guys in the States do things really different, So we'd have to, things like that would have to be, I think, not necessarily worked out, but just respected and understood going in and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think we're moving towards civilizational blocks. That's the way the world's getting restructured. Thank you, Fraser. AL81. I've seen some question whether Vivek has Soros ties, was thinking good VP pick, but no. Yeah. So Vivek's he's going to have to survive the Oppo research. And I've seen the same thing. I don't know the specifics, but I've heard the same thing, that he has had some Soros ties and made some pretty unfortunate statements at the beginning, as I understand it, of COVID. So we'll have to see. But Vivek looks like, again, they don't have to be perfect. They have to be emancipated from the donor class. That's the key. The key is not even so much their ideology per se. That's why I think an RFK, a Trump RFK, I got that wrong order. Trump RFK, Trump Kennedy ticket can be very powerful. I'm not necessarily an advocate. It's not like I'm all into that, but I'm just saying that is very powerful because it would freak the donor class out to no end. And the donor class they're the mediators between the billionaires and the bureaucrats and keeping this refeudalized power structure upon us. We got a Rumble chat here. Lectrex 1964. I enjoyed your book, The Triumph of Tradition. Thank you very much. Actually, it's my pound for pound, it's probably my favorite book that I've written. According to General McGregor, 400,000 Ukrainian and 50,000 soldiers, 50,000 Russian soldiers have perished since NATO stepped in with Boris Johnson to nix the peace accord. Is that all I've got there? It's true. That's exactly right. So McGregor is, and he's not alone. Scott Ritter, a number of others, again, are breaking from the donor class approved talking points and are saying that Ukraine has basically been decimated. And there are signs that they have. The counteroffensive was an embarrassment. It was a blip. It was nothing. It literally was not. Russians are the most fortified fronts in the eastern Ukraine on the planet. I don't even know how well they got. I mean, again, in any land they took back, Russian forces took it back literally 48 hours later. So those are signs that this is not, Ukrainians are crushing the Russians and the Russians are all drunk and they don't know what they're doing and their tanks don't work and they run out of fuel. And Putin is just this evil, terrible dictator. He's Saddam Hussein part 2, as Piers Morgan would say. All of that's just nonsense. It's just absolute and total, Cold War intoxicated nonsense. And it does not understand the new civilizational world that's rising. So, very good. BR-17, if Trump goes after politicians criminally, would that tear apart the U.S.? Each party will go after one another like third world countries. Yeah, it's scary, BR-17. We've never been here, but in one sense, I guess we have, in 1860 when we literally tore each other apart. So that's what we're talking about, how like the Columbia Civil War from 48 to 58, for many scholars forms a kind of template for what might happen, because that was an urban war versus a rural. It was an urban versus rural war with police and militia taking the side of the rural. And that's why, again, I get very emotional when I see people in cities or, blacks, Latinos, non-whites coming out in force in the streets, all for Trump, because I think populism has the ability to transcend all the different divides that the permanent political class tries to impose upon us. Keep in mind, racism is an all-time low. Racism, every study shows that. You put on any study, do you think, or you put on any survey, do you think, say, interracial marriage is good? 90% of the population would have said no back in 1950. And we have the studies that show that they did say no back in 1950. Today, every study says, yeah, go for it. 90% say, yeah, go for it. I mean, it is literally inverted. We have never been less overtly racist. Hence why you have to go to microaggressions. You have to fabricate racism. We've never, ever been more united than we are now. We've never been more anti-war. Even at the height of the Vietnam era, we've never been more anti-war than we are now. And what does the permanent political class, what does our refeudalized aristocracy do every day? Racism, Ukraine. So they impose those on us. And so hopefully we don't tear each other apart, because we're far more united than we ever imagined. Now we find that out. Mike, do you think the West will ever get over the wokeness, and what will it take for that to happen? Yes, of course. So yeah, wokeness is there's nothing permanent about wokeness. Wokeness can't even create a good movie. Wokeness sucks. Everybody admits it. Wokeness splits the left. Piers Morgan, Bill Maher. The left finds even Elon Musk said he was center left before wokeness came, and now he's far right. Yeah. So absolutely, wokeness has no future. The question again is, how much damage does it do in the meantime? And it's also making sure we understand. Hey, don't forget your. He looked like he was about to fall. Don't forget your Terminator. Your Trumpinator. Down below, click on that link below. Grab some. I love them. I've actually got a couple. They're awesome gifts. They're just so, they go well with my shirt too. It's just how much damage does it do until it finally falls apart, and knowing how it fits into the system. Wokeness is used to identify those who refuse to comply with the refeudalized system, and then the powers that be come in and excommunicate those who refuse to comply. So basically, wokeness is the immune system for the powers that be, that don't allow you to dissent from anything that they do. Generalissimo, my friend. Aristocrats in the AR state Republican Party is it Arkansas? I think it's Arkansas, isn't it? Voted to open primaries and not having to be Republican to run as one party. Party affiliations still switch to optional for no reason. County parties hate it. Yeah, I mean, it's the Republican Party officials will do whatever they need to do to stay in power. And keep in mind, them being in power does not mean they have to be in the majority. They just have to be in positions of power. Mitch McConnell makes as much money as Senate Minority Leader as he does Senate Majority Leader. They do not have to win the election. They don't care. They just need to be in power. And if you start challenging those who are in power, regardless of whether they're Democrats or Republicans, that's when they become the uniparty. They come together and they do everything to stop you. So. Josh, Dr. Steve, I live in Georgia and I'm embarrassed by my state right now, and the swamp needs to be drained, not just from D.C., but Georgia as well. That's right. Devil went down to Georgia, man. Georgia is such a beautiful, wonderful state. I've been to Georgia tons of times, did conferences in Atlanta. I like Atlanta as a state. I don't have any problem with it. But I'm close enough where I can drive to Georgia. And the drive is beautiful, and I adore the people, and I adore the landscape. But Georgia Republican Party has been infested. It has been taken over by a bunch of feckless rhinos. Raffensperger, Kemp, you name it. They are disgusting. Your former lieutenant, I know I'm rubbing it in. I don't mean to, Josh. I know, but your former lieutenant governor is now a paid correspondent on CNN. I mean, these guys are sick. So anyway, these guys want a Republican Party that's approved of by MSNBC. Let's put it that way. So I'm with you. Just got to keep pushing. Marilyn Degatti, 83. Good to see you, my friend. Dr. Steve, I'm worried about the Lyme disease vaccine that's coming soon. I'm worried about my nieces and nephews and friends getting it. I don't know enough about it, Marilyn, to comment. But stay informed. Keep doing research. Stay informed. Try to get them informed about it as well. That's just the best thing to do. Charles, my friend, you're back. One more question, Dr. C. Almost 2 months ago, I ordered the Nationalist Populist book bundle and still not received it. When should I anticipate it? Oh, you've got it. Go to our website, Charles, and actually go ahead and just email me, steve@turleytalks.com. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I have people who check the email. I don't necessarily check it. I have people who check it. steve@turleytalks.com. And tell them exactly what you told me, and somebody there, and so or you can also do, I think, support@turleytalks.com, and somebody there should be should help you. Obviously, something you got to get that. You got to get that Nationalist Populist book bundle. Absolutely, Charles. Peter, Dr. Steve, love the YouTube daily updates. Can you share commit Yankee Candle, owned by Newell Brands, is pro-LGBTQIA+. When asked if they support heterosexuals, they refused to answer yes. Multiple attempts made. So offensive. It's a good question, Peter. I don't know. I don't know Yankee Candle specifically. Been to Yankee Candle up in Massachusetts a number of times. Beautiful around Christmas time. Beautiful place to visit. But I just don't know. Unfortunately, my prima facie, totally ignorant opinion would be chances are yes. All of the major corporations are, because of the way refeudalized structure works. A refeudalization is the combination of, by definition, billionaires and bureaucrats at one level, and then a new clerisy class that imposes this religious fundamentalism that's there to identify threats to the billionaires and bureaucrats so that they can excommunicate them, debank them, block them, whatever it is, deplatform them, whatever they need to do, which is just all form of excommunication. So I wouldn't doubt it. I just wouldn't doubt it. All right, next. Boy, we got tons of them. Angel, thank you. Angel Angel Martinelli, thank you. Thank you so much. General Lisa Mo, my family went to the AR meeting, a state meeting, the establishment aristocrats. It's driving me crazy. AR. You guys are probably already... what does it stand for? State. Hold on. State. Arkansas. I thought so. All right. Good. I got it right. My family went to the Arkansas state meeting, and the establishment aristocrats had SWAT team members there to intimidate county and district leaders. Yeah, that's terrible. And you've got a great governor, right? Sarah Huckabee. I mean, she's terrific. This should not be happening. Right? This would not be happening at a Trump rally. It shouldn't be happening at a Republican meeting. So you got to see what's going on. If that's happening at a county level, the state's got to step in. And if the state Republican Party isn't stepping up, then put some pressure on your governor. Again, you're one of the reddest states in the union. You shouldn't be. When I did the video on the top, I think it was the top most expensive. I think I just for the ease of the title, top cheapest states to go and move, red states to go and move to. I mean, Arkansas was like in the top. I think Arkansas was number one, actually, if I recall. So anyway, you're the deep red. Do something, man. Mike, what would a post-woke West look like, especially with the rise of Okay, so that's great. Yeah, I think you would see the return of Christian nationalism. I think we're already seeing it already. And Christian nationalism will have its different flavors. So your Christian nationalism in Hungary, you've got with Viktor Orban, your Christian nationalism with the Law and Justice Party in Poland, your Christian nationalism with Giorgia Meloni and the Brothers of Italy, your Christian nationalism in its different flavors, depending where you are in the United States, your Freedom Convoy representatives, for example, in Canada. So I think that's where it would go. We would be going back to our civilizational roots. I mean, there are neo-pagan movements in Europe and so forth, but they're very, very fractured, obviously. And so, I mean, they can't compete. At least I don't see it. They really can't compete with the very strong, powerful, centralized, almost kind of limited, if most sound contradictory, but limited universalist structure of Christianity that brings in everybody. It's not just sort of this elite, shamanesque kind of, monk-like figure. It's grandparents, it's grandchildren, it's everyone is brought into the fold in Christianity. So I think that's why I've been focusing a lot on the rise of Christian nationalism here in the United States. I do think it is a very, very real a dynamic that's happening, not just here, but in Europe as well. And of course, Russia. We saw that with Russia. It's post-Soviet, it's post-Marxist period, meant going back to the Russian Orthodox Tsarist structure. Even China's going back to their Neo-Confucian roots, Neo-Hindu roots, and India. I mean, in many respects, scholars argue the Ayatollah revolution, the Shiite revolution in Iran in 1979 was more or less the shot heard around the world for the post-globalist, post-woke world, I guess we could call it, in a return to theocracy. That's really what it was in many respects. Looking at it now, 40 years later, big picture, in retrospect, whatever problems we may have with that revolution, it really was a return. It was the first of a series of events that have led to an increasingly post-secular, post-globalist world. And I think we're going to go back to for our own traditions of faith, family, and freedom, which will be magnificent, be incredibly flourishing. And I think is very, very promising, especially for underprivileged neighborhoods that have been ravaged by the secular welfare state. The Forbidden Bible. Thank you, sir. Very cool. Scott Van Hoolen, Trump's mugshot is an angry American eagle. I love it. Oh, I love it. That's so cool. I never even thought about that. Oh, Scott, that's so awesome. It is. It's a freaking angry American eagle. I love it. The eagle flies in rage. Yes. Retribution. Thank you, Scott. Yano, you're back, my friend. Can you impersonate Mike Pence a little bit now? You do really good. I don't know. Do I do a good Mike Pence? You just have to look. I don't know. My Pharaoh. I sound like Clint. No, I can't do it, Yano. You make me self-conscious. I can't do it. Just that is what is it? That is not what did he say? That is not my priority. That is not my priority. American people are not my priority. Oh gosh, what a clown. Donor again, he's running to make money. It's all the whole reason why he's in front of a camera right now is yes to beat up on Trump, but he gets nice big checks to do that. It's all going to his bank account. Hope the Democrats lost the gay vote. Do you think so? You think so? Yeah. I mean, we were already seeing it. I mean, there's plenty of members of the LGBT community, so to speak, who want nothing to do with the Democrats. They're not woke by any stretch of the imagination. I think someone like Douglas Murray would be a perfect example. Dave Rubin, they've lost a lot. Absolutely. Again, wokeness is a very particular kind of fundamentalism that not everybody's into. That's for sure. Bud G, can you see the move to push out Harris and replace with someone so Joe can step down? Yeah, Rice, Madam Obama. Yeah, that's what Roger Stone's arguing. Not Condoleezza Rice. What's her name? Yeah, I know who you're talking about. And Madam Obama, Michael Obama, right? Yeah, I definitely, sure, because she's a disaster, admittedly. So everybody admits, even the media is admitting it, which is their way of saying get rid of her. Whatever you do, do not make sure she's not on the ticket. Whatever you do. And I think Joe's under enormous pressure to step down. He's under enormous pressure. I mean, the guy doesn't even know. I mean, you saw him. He's falling asleep and at Hawaii ceremonies honoring survivors and so on. I mean, the guy is just, everyone sees. He shuffles. He's got that shuffle. He's got that kind of mannerism. Sometimes the drugs kick in, so he looks relatively decent, but they can't do it 24/7. And he calls a lid every day at 11 a.m. anyway. And then spends 40% of his time on a beach. So anyway. Scott, a little revolution from time to time is a healthy thing. Yeah, hence 1776, 1865, 1960s. Yeah, trim the tree for the sake of the tree, so to speak, get rid of dead weight. I think you're right. I mean, I think we have to go through a renewal process basically every 8. The fourth turning argues it's every 80 years. So that's basically the way it's working itself out from 1770s, 80s, 1860s, 1960s. So, yep, I think we're due for one. Next
Peggy, thank you. Thank you so much. Dawn's World. Thank you, Dawn. Very, very appreciated. Well, Alos, my friend, what do you think about Javier Milei, the libertarian Argentinian candidate, saying BRICS is a communist cesspool that's going to suppress the free world even more? Yeah, well, Javier is more of a libertarian, as you point out. Well, first of all, I love Javier Milei. I did a video on him. I love him. I think he's awesome. I think he has the potential to continue the Bukeliification of Latin America. Nayib Bukele is one of the most popular leaders on the planet right now, 90% approval rating. El Salvador president finally overcame the El Salvador swamp. It took a while in El Salvador, took many decades, but he did it, and now he is rocking and rolling. Yeah. So Javier is not going to like BRICS. He's going to see them in political terms, more as representing authoritarian regimes, and so if he said that, I have not heard it, but if he said that, he's using the political frame of reference that was responsible for organizing world order for the last 3 decades. He's continuing to use that to assess what's going on in BRICS. I personally think that is an outdated frame of point of evaluation, just because I think politics is downstream from culture, and culture has now reemerged as the primary organizing principle for world order, not politics. So that's where I would come from. But I love him. I love Javier. And I can't wait. I want to see him when I think it's in October, right? It was the election in October. Anthony, can the Supreme Court step in and stop the freak show that we have at the moment, Trump 2024? Yes. As I understand it, yes. Yes. Jonathan Turley's been arguing that. Robert Barnes has been arguing that. Alan Dershowitz has been arguing it. The question is when. And that's where they disagree. Now, if I understand, Turley did say they could, and Turley would make distinctions between the cases. But in a number of these cases, especially this one right now, this travesty that's going on in Fulton County, yes, Supreme Court could step in. I think they will sooner or later, because Meadows is appealing the decision not to have it removed from local to federal, which would have dropped the case. So some Obama appointed lawyer or a judge turned that request down. So he's appealing. It's going through the appellate process. So yes, as I understand it, yes. And they will eventually. Most argue all of these cases will be overturned by the Supreme Court, but we'll have to see. I mean, at the very least, because of a biased jury, let's say in DC, for example. Anthony, do you see the West Coast turning red anytime soon? I was going to do a video. I'm going through, as you can tell, I'm going through some assessment here. I was going to do a video on a very interesting article that I read on how to turn California red. But I gave the argument to my wife in one of our walks, and she pushed back on the argument and said, but you're thinking too rationally. This analysis is thinking too rationally. And one of the effects of wokeness is that it removes the ability to reason. And I think she's right. I think wokeness entails its own punishment. And the West is falling apart. California in particular is just falling apart by every major indicator. I mean, Trump was asked with Tucker what he thought about running against Gavin Newsom. He's like, bring it on. I mean, California's a disaster. Who wants to Californiaize, it's known as Californication, right? It's just, who wants to do that to the country? So, but so many in the coastal elites just can't see it. 90% of California is, coastal cosmopolitan centers. The rural areas have gotten very small because everyone's been moving out. So I think it would be very hard. I just don't think, again, it's that hypernormativity. I don't think they have any frame of reference for understanding reality apart from their failed woke policies. So I used to think, my wife convinced me of that. I think that wokeness does have the ability to reshape the imagination in such a way that it becomes very stifled and very shriveled and truncated and parochial. And unable to think beyond because it's either this homeless problem or you're a racist. And we can't be a racist. I can't be a racist, or I'll be canceled from everything. Yeah. So anyway. All right. Bearded talk. Indictment aside, Team Trump's still up against Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, blue counties cheating. How do we overcome this? So Trump, well, yeah, no, I'm with you. It's going to be hard in Arizona, as we saw with Carrie Lake. And again, I mean, she almost did it. The turnout was so awesome. She almost did it. And again, but the turnout will be more for Trump. And that may be it. It may overcome the margin of fraud. You can only do fraud within 2 to 3% of the vote, as I understand it. Wisconsin, we may be okay with Wisconsin because you had that judge who threw out 200,000 mail-in ballots as invalid 2 freaking years after the fact. So they have some of the strictest mail-in ballot laws on the books constitutionally that were totally broken in 2020. So I don't know if they can do that anymore with this judge's latest ruling. Georgia is made up of a cesspool of disgusting rhinos. So I'm with you on Georgia. I don't know. Georgia, Pennsylvania, they got Shapiro there, a leftist. But again, Pennsylvania, Michigan, there's still enough of a Republican majority. And a lot of them are MAGA. A lot of them are very solid, strong, conservative, Christian, patriot state legislators. So I know right now we're going to have to see Trump is going to have to come up with a plan to show that his ballot harvesting combined with record day turnout is enough to overcome it. But right now, no, I have nothing specific for you, Bearded. We're going into this fully recognizing this could get stolen again. They can do it because they want to. They have every intention to. And we can't let them do it. So over the next 18 months or so, we are going to have to figure out what we're going to do to crush this once and for all. I'm with you. So we'll do it together. We're going in together, man. Paul, my friend, that clip of President Trump being cheered by black people is the real blow to the KKK Democrats. 45 should talk to the inner cities more. I would love to see it. Yeah, and that was a big message he had in 2016. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? You've been voting this way for decades, and what have you got? How are your lives measurably improved? Put me in, and let's see what we can do together. So I know it would be huge, and I do. I think, again, the populist paradigm has the power to be able to play into this because it's like the values, interests, and concerns of the people are my values, interests, and concerns, not the donor class, you. And the middle class and the underclass are my chief priority because it's almost like a Belt and Road Initiative. The more we build up your society, the more the nation as a whole rises up as well. So that's the idea of the BRI, with China's selling point in Africa and throughout the Middle East. And I think it could be very, very powerful in our inner cities and the like. But again, they're just so overrun by Democratic politicians who recognize, oh, wait, but then my power base is gone. Right? Limousine liberals who keep people impoverished so as to maintain their power. So there's so much to break through in this. Great point, Paul. Scott, Trump's mugshot looks like we saw that. Good. Like angry American Eagle. Love it. The Kiefer 522, despite the driven MSM narrative, the new Trump mugshot is going to be more galvanizing for MAGA support than anything else I've seen so far. No black pills here. God bless. Absolutely. Absolutely. Guaranteed. And it's already happening. It flooded Twitter. And the super majority of the retweets and all that were all positive. The people have had, again, even never Trumpers are admitting it. Ben Shapiro's admitting it. Instantly iconic was his word. Yeah, there you go. Love it, Josh. Instantly iconic. Perfect. Love it. Servant of God, my friend, Dr. Steve, have you heard of the 1919 Ford versus Dodge case and the Treaty of 1871? They seem part of what led to a lot of issues today. No, I'll have to check. I think I've heard of the Treaty, the 1871. I have to look that up, but everybody else can too. But no, I can't comment. BR17 here in Washington State, 90% of counties are red outside of Olympia. Absolutely, just like in Oregon, absolutely, and King County, etc. But I'm hopeful with the activity and people I meet. Hopefully, yeah, again, if we can break into these cities and take out their power once and for all, we've got them. So I'm with you. But Oregon, yeah, Oregon has 33 counties, 34 counties. I think like 29 consistently vote red. If you got rid of Multnomah County, again, I just know Oregon because of the Greater Idaho movement. If you got rid of Multnomah County, where Portland is, every single Republican gubernatorial candidate would win by 10 points. Every single Republican presidential candidate would win by 10 points. I mean, it's just, these are very limited, geographically limited population centers that we're going to have to figure how to overcome. No question. General Simone, no, Sarah is an aristocrat. Really? Yeah, most people do not understand it. Dems run as Republicans to win. I want to run for Congress, but they charge 30 grand. My, oh my. Yeah, if Sarah's a rhino, then you guys are just going to have to mobilize your patriot-based rank and file, and the grassroots, and push back. Very, very similar, like what our movie, The Return of the American Patriot, talked about with Republicans in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania Republicans were all, prior to 2022, they were all rhinos. All of them. They're seedy, disgusting rhinos. Not a whit of difference between them and Democrats. Not a whit. They make Joe Manchin look conservative. I mean, they're horrid. And so they did everything they can to thwart Doug Mastriano, because he would. So you just have to, again, it's just use the Berlin Wall analogy. You just have to keep pushing and pushing, and put the tanks come, they knock you down, get back up and push back harder than before. Eventually the wall falls. Anthony, did a judge grant Trump immunity? Yes, a Pennsylvania judge granted Trump immunity for a case brought against him by an operator, I believe, of a Dominion system or one of the voting systems, who he accused Trump and Giuliani of colluding to smear him. And so he received death threats, and he apparently had a couple of heart attacks. Poor fellow. He sued them for liability, and the judge in Pennsylvania ruled that Trump has presidential immunity. He cannot be sued for anything he did while in office. So the question is, when does that matriculate? When does that precedent matriculate into these other cases? We may have to wait for the appellate process before it does. Servant of God, also, it's me, or is it me, or does Vivek seem too convenient to be true? Because he says a lot of seemingly good things, but my instincts are sounding alarms like they did for Obama and 08. Yeah, it may be. Again, he's got to get vetted. Vivek's got to get vetted. No question. And the vetting process, we'll see how it goes with him. He is very good. I'm with you. He's very, very good. We'll just see how deep that is. That's just going to play it out, but I don't have any inside baseball information on it. Todd, I think Trump should have taken Bongino's advice and denied paying bond. Yes, I saw that too. Let them throw him in jail so the Secret Service would have shut down the whole jail. That's right. That's right. That's what in effect, they would have to do, wouldn't they? Yeah. I know. I saw Bongino saying that as well. But no, Trump decided not to. But I'm with you. That would have been neat. Again, it's such a Trump thing. It would have been such a Trump thing to do. Hot cake. With Georgia courts indicting Trump wrongfully and many Georgia Republicans not defending them, to their shame, how do you think this will affect Georgia's primaries? We'll see. We'll see. It didn't affect them in 2022. All the typical rhinos won. Raffensperger, right? Didn't Raffensperger win again as Secretary of State? All the Kemp won. You did have to replace your lieutenant governor. He couldn't. I don't even think he was able to win the primary, so he had to drop out and again work for CNN, who's his ilk. So we'll see how it plays out in Georgia. But right now, what's happening in Georgia is proof that it's Republicans, the Republican rhino leadership, that wants to take Trump out. It's not Democrats. Democrats are not our enemy, ultimately. Yes, they're an enemy in terms of the way they're being used. But our real enemy is the rhino neocon Republican leadership. That's the real enemy. Ken R. 1800, how much can RFK mess up Newsom if Biden drops out of demand primary? Be very interesting. Newsom would be totally backed by the establishment, so have all the money. He'll have the donor class, the same donor class that buys and pays for Republicans. And so the question is, how much of an anti-establishment mood are Democrats? I think about 20 to 30% are. Be also interested in why am I forgetting his name? The Princeton professor's his campaign. Forgetting Black Princeton professor. Why am I? Because he spoke at the university I used to teach at, but it's just I'm getting tired, guys. A little after two hours here. Cornell West. I knew it would come to me the moment I just stopped thinking about it. But I think I think Cornell West, RFK Jr. They both, but Cornell West is not a Democrat. He's not running on the Democrat ticket. But I think they're both representative of a growing anti-elite sentiment within the left. And the key is, like they did in Italy with 5-star and Lega parties, if you can unite the populist right and the populist left, you have something extraordinary. So you have to see if the populist left could vote for Trump. I think a lot of them could. A lot of the Sanders did vote for Trump. And I think a lot of the RFK vote would vote for him. And it'd be interesting if Cornell West would vote for him. Again, if he is able to ingratiate himself, especially with this weaponized persecution, if he can ingratiate himself with non-whites who have themselves felt victims of this system, of this lawfare, all bets are off. It'll be very fascinating to see what they can do. But obviously, I think Newsom would have the edge there because he has the donor support, and Democrats, generally speaking, are supportive of power, and they see the donor class as their key to power. Servant of God, welcome back. TLDR Ford versus Dodge led to fiduciary responsibility, and the treaty made the U.S. a corporation. Yes, okay, that's the 1871 treaty you're talking about. It made the U.S. a corporation. Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but I've heard it come back quite a bit. So I'd have to look into it more. I'd have to do more of a deep dive. But I know that came up a lot in 2020. And I think I did a little reading back then, but it's left me. So I will try to do that, servant of God. And that's it. You're the best, gang. Keep the faith, keep rocking. Keep sharing that mugshot for everyone to see, because that, more than anything else, is the iconic embodiment of the very filth, the very corruption of the deep state that we're all fighting against. And with God's help, we're going to win. God bless you. I love every one of you. Have a wonderful weekend.